I really want to expand the possibility of how people think about quote unquote sex, because for most people, they think about it as intercourse. That's what sex is. And so you're supposed to be ready, have a great erection, be wet and juicy as a woman. Everybody's supposed to have all this spontaneous desire, and all the parts are supposed to be working perfectly, and you're supposed to, it's all supposed to feel incredible. So what people think about sex and foreplay, they think foreplay and sex, it's like appetizer and main course, when in reality, it's a smorgasbord of delectable bites, the entire landscape of our sexual pleasure and techniques. And they're all equal. Kissing is orgasmic. And all women can have orgasms from intercourse. All human bodies can have over 20 kinds of orgasms. Locations to touch, techniques to use, objects of desire. I have done, for the last 20 years, I have been an orgasm scholar.
Hey everyone, Derek Hines here. Welcome to the podcast where I'll share with you the patterns, insights, research, and technologies that we use in my own pain and performance practice to help people improve their health, speed their healing, and increase their longevity. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy it. Susan Bratton, welcome to the Pain and Performance Podcast, my dear.
Dr. Hines, good to be in the house. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
We send out, whenever I have a guest, we send out, some of this is to my staff and some of this is to, some of our followers. And we're like, hey, here's the guest coming on. What questions do you have? And I got a barrage of questions for this episode, which is great. And you'll kind of get a kick out of it. I would say a third of them came through these random DMs that were no names, I was like, okay, this is one of my close friends or family members that's I'm trying to get this question under the radar.
Asking for a friend.
Right. Yeah. Is there any way to improve sexual performance from random anonymous person? Yes. So we're going to be talking about everything sexual health. And this is one of those topics that I think we don't necessarily associate as much with health as we probably should. When you start to dig in the data around sexual health and everything else that it touches, it's astounding how much this affects our longevity, our health, our vitality, our energy, our sleep. You can just keep on going with it. So one of the things that I wanted to kick this off with is when you hear a healthy sex life, what does that look like to you? What's the parameters around what a healthy sex life is?
Yeah, I really love starting out the whole episode defining what sex is, because it's much broader than most people think. I really want to expand the possibility of how people think about quote unquote sex, because for most people, they think about it as intercourse. That's what sex is. And so you're supposed to be ready, have a great erection, be wet and juicy as a woman. Everybody's supposed to have all this spontaneous desire, and all the parts are supposed to be working perfectly, and you're supposed to, it's all supposed to feel incredible, and you throw each other down on the bed and you jump on top of each other and he penetrates her and they have this wild simultaneous orgasm, and then he wants a sandwich and she goes to sleep or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's very intercourse focused. And I have been writing passionate love. So I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm actually an author and publisher of 44 books and programs on passionate lovemaking techniques and bedroom communication skills and intimate wellness that extends your sex span. So you can have great sex your whole life long, which considerably contributes to your health span. Extending your sex span contributes to extending your health span. Listen, if you're having great sex in your 70s, your 80s, and your 90s, you're going to be happier, you're going to be healthier, You're going to look better. Like you're going to die the happy one. And so the thing is though, that if couples, and here's what happens often, I have this little formula. I call it the magic pill method, because what happens with couples is that something goes south somewhere, loss of lubrication, painful sex, beginnings of erectile dysfunction, prostate issues, loss of libido, and other health issues, all kinds, everything from cancer to Alzheimer's to what have you. When that happens, couples tend to be like, well, I guess we can't have sex anymore, so I guess we'll just stop touching each other. I guess we'll move into separate bedrooms. I guess we'll just be platonic friends. And yeah, I love my partner, but the thrill is gone, Dr. Hines, right? I mean,
and that's just because like we're thinking of sex as only the penetration part, like only the intercourse part. So you're like, if that's gone, then let's throw the whole thing out.
Baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
And so there's two things to that. One is, and I want to preface both of those two things by telling you that one of the areas of expertise that I have is intercourse, orgasmic intercourse techniques, because for the same reason that we think sex is intercourse, which is our media, the culture, movies, adult content focused on it, we also don't learn good intercourse practices that are pleasurable for both the penis and the vaginal cavern, which is it's not an inside out penis, yet in everything that we see depicting quote unquote sex, everybody orgasms very easily, and it's in and out, and that's not what feels good to a vagina, interestingly. So I teach a lot of pleasuring skills that expand the orgasmic capacity for both partners. He can last as long as he wants. He can have ejaculatory choice. He's got unlimited stamina. He's fully firm and erect. He's healthy. His testosterone levels are high. He's, really in good. He's getting nighttime erections. He's getting morning wood. She's open to pleasure, loves having sex. When you initiate, she's like, oh, I'm not there yet, but I know we can get me there. So let's go, daddy. It's pleasurable for her. She's wildly orgasmic. She can sustain massive amounts of pleasure in her body. Sex doesn't hurt. She knows how to stay lubricated, because lubrication is actually a health thing and pretty easy to fix, interestingly. And it's not just her hormones, right? That's a very tiny part of it. It contributes to it. And so once couples have this notion that, okay, I'm actually really good at it. We're really good at intercourse, but that's not the only thing we focus on. We're doing a lot of kissing, full body touch, manual genital pleasuring, which I call yoni massage, and lingam massage. That's the tantric lovemaking words for our genital systems, which I love because, some people call female genitals a vagina, but that's just the inside. The outside is where all the delicious orgasmic tissue, a lot more, more than 50% of the orgasmic tissue is actually addressed from the face or the vulva. And it all can be orgasmically activated. It starts out not feeling much, but your brain, when you start really playing with all that tissue, it really registers it as pleasure over time. You have to train yourself to feel the pleasure. So that's why you need a long sex span, because you got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
So that I think is very important as well, is this notion that there's oral pleasuring, manual pleasuring. Toys are fantastic. They're so good for the tissue. All that vibration, pulsation, it's stimulating that erectile tissue in the both the male and female genital structures, the yoni and the lingam, and bringing in that blood flow that is what keeps us from atrophying as we age. So I think it's really important to think about that whole panoply, that sex isn't just intercourse, but you can get good at it, but it's touch, connection, joyful laughter, sensation, oxytocin production. You even produce, when you have orgasmic pleasure together, in whatever ways you get there. And the more paths to pleasure you have, the better off you are. Training your body to feel all that pleasure over time is fantastic. The more that you release things like neurotransmitter cascades and better hormone function, you get better immune response. You release natural killer cells, which actually eat the cancerous cells and the broken cells. So you keep your mitochondrial energy higher by having sex more often. Add on to that, and this you will really understand because you are a pain and performance doctor. And that is that when you're making love and you're doing different sex positions, you're gaining flexibility, mobility, strength, stamina, balance. I mean, these are the keys to longevity, right?
Right.
I wanted to tell you about one of the things that I'm doing, which is I do two machines at my longevity center that I go to here. One of them is called the ARX, Adaptive Resistance Cross Training or something. The other one is called VASPER, stands for Vascular Performance. And it's interesting that those two next generation kind of exercise biohacking machines, one of them creates networks of blood vessels. If you look down at my thighs, the entire tissue is full of networks. It's like a map of the European railway system on my thighs, but it's also on my sides. It's on my breasts. I am on my arms. I'm innervated. I pump. My blood pumps really well. And, when I work out in the gym, I'm like popping veins. And I'll be 64 this year. I'm working on deadlifting my body weight. I weigh 160 pounds because I'm almost 6 feet tall. It's muscle. It's muscle in here. And that Vasper gives me that blood flow that fills up my genital structures. Same with a man. We have the same amount of erectile tissue. And the ARX is really interesting because I do eccentric and concentric movement. So I'm resisting. So I can stay up on top of my partner and ride him cowgirl like for a long time and have my pleasure. And it's just so great to be able to do that. And I was hugging my partner the other day. I love to get squeezed. I love to be held. I just love to be held so much. We all do if we're held well. And I was holding him and he was holding me, and I could hold a pretty strong squeeze for a significant amount of time, because one of the other things I do on the ARX is I hold every move. There's like chest presses, there's, leg presses. I hold it for a minute. I've got to hold the resistance for a whole minute long. And I'm always doing planks and mountain climbers and things like that too. And when you hold resistance, you get really strong, like you can sustain strength. It's not just you can pop something and, do one deadlift. It's like I can carry heavy weight, and it's all dovetails together. Having sex helps me in the gym. Being in the gym helps me have great sex. And it also helps me carry heavy boxes of books and to carry all my groceries and my bags on my shoulder in the house at one time and things like that. And so I think when you're thinking about, and it lowers my pain in every aspect of my life. If I don't work out, my pain, I feel my joints, I feel old, I feel crickety and crotchety and slow. And so it's just like, wow, these new devices are so good for your sex life, and your sex life is so good for these devices that we have at our, at our opportunity today to go to. So
you'll appreciate
a couple of the things I wanted to say about
we're going to unpack a lot of that. So you'll appreciate this. I have a patient who is 92. And she is a rock star. She still does everything, comes in. We do a bunch of advanced recovery stuff. She's in a cryo chamber at minus 180, like twice a week at 92, and she's just rolling. But
yeah, I love that.
We were talking, and she was explaining how some of her friends, she was like, all my friends are 80 because, like, you know, all the ones close to my age have died now. And so she's explaining how much energy she puts into staying healthy. And she's like, oh, all of my friends are telling me how lucky I am to be this healthy. And she was like, they don't understand that I have worked so hard for this because I get so much pleasure out of doing everything. And it's like that feedback loop, right? Yes, definitely. But it's like, okay,
endorphins.
you don't look, you know, working out is hard, right? Staying consistent and having the discipline to do that, especially as we go through the aging process. And look, we're gonna, you know, have little things that are breaking down. But if you know that if you keep doing that stuff, you're going to continue to feel good. You're going to continue to have a great sex life, even if you're 92. Like, yep. I've got a little more motivation to like not hit the snooze button if I know that that's what I'm working for. That's my why, so to speak. So I love it. When, like, your description of what a healthy sex life was, I think is probably counter to what somebody might have come to listen to this episode with. When I was studying some of the research around this, say that again.
What do you think they were thinking?
I think it's exactly what you said. Whenever we say healthy sex life, the first thing that probably comes to mind is how many times do we have intercourse? How good is it? Like, I feel like that would be the most common thing. What from your standpoint, whenever you have this discussion with people, is it that? Is there anything different when they think of healthy sex life?
No, that's pretty much the paradigm that I want to bust, because healthy sex is so many other things. And it's interesting too, because there are a lot of people who say, you know, well, I don't really like oral, or I don't like to give oral. And it's like, but it's orgasmic and pleasurable once you know what you're doing. Most of the reason why people give up their sex life is that it's just not very satisfying, because it's the blind leading the blind behind closed doors. And we're not taught how to make love. And so what happens is that the lack of knowledge creates fear. And fear is the enemy of comfort, relaxation. And arousal cannot begin unless you're wired a little uniquely. Arousal really cannot begin, especially in long-term relationships, without relaxation. So one of the things I hear a lot, Derek, is couples will say, and these are younger people, 30s, 40s, they're saying, I'm too stressed out to have sex. And I'm like, that's exactly why you should.
I'm too stressed out to work out. That's why you need to go. That's great. That's really good. Working
out and having sex they are the physical embodiments of pleasure. Once you start
when people say that, is that just a time allocation? Like, it's easy for them to, like, I'm stressed, I'm busy right now. Like, I know the energy that it's like in their head, like the amount of energy it's going to take for us to get hot and heavy and stuff. It's a lot. We both need to wake up early. Like, where are they going wrong with that thought?
Well, they're still watching TV instead. So they're on someone else's agenda rather than their own health agenda.
That's very accurate.
Yeah. So you knew we were going to like each other from the moment we met. We're like, we are two peas in a pod, you and I. The thing that I think is also helpful when you don't think about intimacy or sex as intercourse, then you're not feeling like you're on the hook for it. It's much easier for men generally to be ready for intercourse. They have very fast-acting hemodynamics, which is blood flow. And blood flow is if there's one thing I want to leave you with today, it's how important blood flow is. Because that erectile tissue, which is the same amount in a penis as it is in a same amount in a lingam as it is in a yoni. I just like to use those two words. It's the same amount, but for the female body, it's in all these nooks and crannies, and it takes us about 20 minutes to get aroused. Once we're relaxed, we can begin the arousal ladder. But for men, it's like a minute or two. And so he's ready to go. They're focused on it being sex. He penetrates her before she's, really turned on. He has an orgasm. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. Maybe she thinks, I'm just the kind of woman who can't have an orgasm from intercourse, but I like to be close to my husband. Well, that doesn't scale. And all women can have orgasms from intercourse. All human bodies can have over 20 kinds of orgasms, locations to touch, techniques to use, objects of desire. I have done, for the last 20 years, I have been an orgasm scholar, essentially. My mentor got her PhD in the female orgasmic potential. And I come from a lineage of orgasmic expansion and human orgasmic potential. And so we're barely scratching the surface. We're just doing those little sneezy things when they can just be the most incredibly off the hook, orgasmic, pleasurable experiences that keep getting better as you age, because your sexual maturation and development kind of mirrors your personal maturation and your personal development. We get wiser as we learn more. And so the more that we understand that we know nothing about lovemaking and that it's all learned skills, and we begin the journey, all of a sudden we're like, turns out I'm really orgasmic from intercourse once I do these techniques. Turns out I'm really, really good at giving oral and getting off on it, or receiving oral and getting off on it. Oh my God, my yoni massage and lingam massage skills are off the hook now. I just lie there and she moans for a half an hour, having orgasm after orgasm after orgasm. And then she's like, well, now I'm in the mood for intercourse. Yeah, that's what I needed. So what people think about sex and foreplay, they think foreplay and sex, it's like appetizer and main course, when in reality, it's a smorgasbord of delectable bites, the entire landscape of our sexual pleasure and techniques. And they're all equal. Kissing is orgasmic. Breast play is orgasmic. P-spot stimulation, G-spot stimulation. There's a world of wonderful discovery for every body.
I don't feel like a lot of people think of sex and foreplay, intercourse as a skill. I love, like you said that, and I'm like, man, how many people think of that as a skill that I should practice and I should learn about and I should study? Like, hey, let's try this skill. Can I get better? A skill is something we can get better at. And when we're young, it's like you're either good at sex or not good at sex, right? It's like, oh, it just is. I think that little mental twist of like, this is a skill that we can work on both together and individually. I like that alone would probably change people's lives dramatically, of like, just what skills do I need to get better at to do this? Let's go down that for a minute. Before we do that, so I've heard you say that before, that there was 20 types of orgasms that females can have.
Males and like, females, all bodies. So
that was going to be my question. How many types can men have? Is it the same?
Yeah. When you learned in medical school about homologous genitalia, if you were lucky enough to get any sex education at all, one of the things you would learn in the doctory land is about homologous genital structures. And what that essentially means is that, and I think Dr. Emily Nagoski said it best in her book, Come As You Are. She said, we have the same parts arranged in different order. And she was absolutely right to show that in gestation, we start out with female genitals, and then we get a hormone bath about 16 weeks in that will convert half of us to, being penis owners. That's why there's a lot of, intersex humans that are kind of a little bit of both and all of those things. There's a wide variety of genetics. And what's interesting about that is that the clitoris is the same as the penis. The urethral sponge, which people call the G-spot, is really the corpus spongiosum that runs down the length of the penis. The testicles and the outer labia are very similar structure and tissue. And so we have the same parts. We have the same orgasmic capacity. Women are just slightly ahead of men in believing that they can be multi-orgasmic and with different locations, because there has been a lot of messaging in the marketplace. Like just yesterday, one of my, and I've been doing this for 18 years, and a lot of people who've been on, I write a newsletter. It's at betterlover.com. And I teach all kinds of techniques and skills and anatomy and all this stuff. And I have for 18 years, I've been doing this. And a woman wrote to me yesterday and she said, I want to find my A spot. Where is that? I want to get a toy that will stimulate my A spot. And, we have this idea that there's this map inside the vagina where there's the G spot, there's the A spot, there's the deep spot, there's the cervix, there's but in reality, the entire vaginal cavern is wildly orgasmic once the tissue is stimulated enough that it can go from essentially, sometimes women feel shame about being touched in a certain place, or they feel pain. And the pain could often be trauma or lack of lubrication, lack of blood flow, pelvic bowl issues, structural systemic issues, which is, kind of your sphere. And, or it could be that it's numb, and that's really, I don't feel anything. And it can all be activated because everybody's heard the term, your brain is your biggest sex organ. But why? The reason is not, the lovemaking talk and things like that, although that's a lot of fun to explore. Moaning or saying what you see and encouraging your partner and, telling them they're doing a great job and sharing fantasies. I mean, the whole auditory component of sexuality is a real pleasurable piece, but that's not why the brain's the biggest sex organ. The brain is the biggest sex organ because every single spot that you touch on the entire map of the genital structures, both the male body and the female body, they send signals to a different part of your brain. And they light up different areas of your brain. So the more areas you bring online, the more oxygenation you're getting with your orgasmic pleasure. And oxygenation to the brain is what you want for like an orgasm before bed, an orgasm or 10 before bed. Oxygenate your brain such that you're going to get better brain health. You're going to be able to clean and detox. Your body can detox your brain at night while you're sleeping, which is when it does that. It really cleans things out and takes care of things. And so learning all these spots is really important. And the G spot is actually a long tube that runs along the top of the vaginal cavern. It blends right into the A spot. It's really the same tissue. It's just a little further in. Then you've got the cervix kind of popping down, like kind of dipping down into the vaginal cavern. Beyond that, beyond the cervix, there's more space back there. Down along the bottom of the vaginal cavern is your perineal sponge between the bottom of your vaginal cavern and the rectum. And the sides of the vaginal cavern have the nerves, the pudendal nerves, that can make your toes curl. When you have toe curling sex, it's often because those nerves actually, your whole nervous system is feeling the sides of the cavern. So, and then the introital sphincter is the opening to the vaginal cavern. That has mechanoreceptors in it that love the pressure and the sensation of pressure. So when you start activating all of that, and you start activating the external structures, the outer labia, the mons, venous, the top of the pubic bone, the clitoral hood, which turns in to the inner labia and comes down and meets at the bottom near the perineum in an area called the fourchette. The opening inside the labia is called the vestibule. That has where your urine comes out, which is the same as the end of the penis. So both the female and male body both urinate and ejaculate out of that urethral tube. You've got the opening to the vagina, and then at the top, of course, you've got the clitoral tip, the glans, which is the same as the end of the penis, the shaft, which is the same as the penis, the crura, the arms of the clitoris, the vestibular bulbs, the legs, which are underneath the pubic hair. I mean, the whole thing is just this massively rich network of the most wonderfully sensitive tissue that puts you in ecstatic states.
Yeah.
That, my friend, is what's good for you.
I want to get to, certainly, like, we had a lot of questions about pain and addressing that, but let's stay here for a moment.
Sure.
When we talk about this as a skill, so like, I think you probably just blew people's minds with like how many areas are involved. Certainly men listening to this. How would you tell someone to go about like improving their skills of sex, of pleasure, of oral foreplay? Like, how do we think about that? What skills should they work on, and how?
Yeah, there's 3 areas of skills. The first is techniques. Locations to touch, using toys, understanding anatomy, learning the intercourse techniques, which, by the way, just for your listeners who are like, where do I get those? If you go to orgasmicintercourse.com, it has all my orgasmic intercourse techniques. They're free. So orgasmicintercourse.com is a good place to go for that. And oral pleasuring, manual pleasuring, so yoni and lingam massage with hands and with toys. I specifically like a couple of different massage devices for the vulva. There's one that it's simply called the Vibe, and it's a really super quiet vulva massager. There's another one called the Queen that is a little bit louder and a little bit stronger. Some women like it lighter. Some women like more sensation. I've got both, because sometimes I want it light, sometimes I want it hard. We go from a lioness to a kitty cat and back 65 times during a lovemaking session. That's just how we are. We're
day to day, week to week, moment to moment.
Exactly.
What's the myth that, like, okay, if I start using that, I'll only be able to achieve an orgasm if I'm using one of these devices? Let's unpack that for the listeners.
Oh, yeah. I want to tell you as well that drivedesire.com is where I have all these toys that I talk about on the show. What I've found is people are like, well, she didn't tell me what it is or how to find it, and I really want that thing, and I don't want to annoy people, so I just always have my latest recommendations, including all of my prostate massage tools. Because for men, especially over 40, I recommend vacuum erection devices and prostate massage tools. Remote control ones, app control ones, I just think they're really good because they bring oxygenation into the prostate tissue. Because the prostate, of course, is a very, very, the urethral tube goes through there and it can get crunched off, and men have urinary issues, and then they end up getting prostatitis or they end up getting prostate cancer. And that's its whole microbiome for, working on your microbiomes as well. Your gut, your prostate, your vagina, your urethral canals, all of these things have their microbiomes, and they're all interrelated. We're a complex system. So the toys themselves, I consider them sex tools. They are very playful. Once you start incorporating them into your lovemaking and you have a pleasure chest full of them, you have so many more fun things you can do together. And if you overdrive your clitoral structures with a really strong vibration, you kind of are like forcing yourself to get to this orgasm. You will have a refractory period. That means that for a few minutes, you have to recover from that and before you can have another orgasm. But if you just get enough blood flow into the genital structures early on in your lovemaking, then all of that erectile tissue is plumped up. You've got your lady boner, which is like your man boner. We have a boner too, but women are often penetrated and complete before they even have the 20 minutes that it takes to get our blood flowing to our pelvic bowl. Kissing and breast play help with that, by the way. It's a system. And when you use toys, and you're using different kinds of toys, so let's just say I'm using a rabbit. A rabbit is a vibrator that has an external area that stimulates the clitoral structures on the outside, on the vulva, while at the same time it has a little arm that goes into the vagina and has vibration there to vibrate all that erectile tissue. That's a really good toy for what I call orgasmic cross training, which is when you stimulate one thing that you know will feel good, like your clitoris, which is more you've probably put most of your attention. And then at the same time as you've brought that pleasure online, you're stimulating the other area internal to your vagina. That is your cross training that helps you get really good at feeling the sensation and moving through the pain or the shame or the numbness into pleasure in the vagina to help you with orgasmic intercourse. Another kind would be a G-spot toy, a G-spot vibrator. There are clitoral vibrators, bullets, different things like that. There are, here's my new favorite. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. Nipple vibrators. There's this little vibrator. It's called the Gemini. I'm just about to put it on Drive Desire. So it'll be there by the time the show comes out. This is a brand new product. And it's these they're little like nipple clamps that you can adjust. They have a little screw on them. So they can be very light on your nipples. They don't have to be hard. Clamping doesn't mean hurting. Yeah. It's not a pain related thing. It's just so they can hold on there. And then there's a little necklace, and the little vibrator's kind of on the base of the necklace, and then it goes out to these nipple vibes. And it has like 5 speeds, plus it has like this like that. Oh my gosh. And what's so fun about it is that you can wear those while you're doing other things and get stimulation in multiple zones. I mean, the more that you're kissing while you're making love, or you're doing breast play and genital stimulation, that's going to just increase all that blood flow, expand all that tissue, because the more the tissue is engorged, the more blood flow there is to the tissue, the more that it expands. You can imagine it as a penis. It's very simple. A penis is very flaccid, small. And then when it's erect, it's nice and hard and big. And if you're healthy, it's veiny. You want lots of veins to show in your penis. If you look down at your penis and it's basically just skin, and you can maybe see a little capillary here and there, you got work to do. You want that thing to look like your arm when you're pumping in the gym. And when that is all expanded full of blood, it has more surface area, so that when you're pleasuring it, whether it's the yoni or the lingam, you're sending way more signals to your biggest sex organ, your brain. And so you want to increase your pleasure. And what the vibrations do and all the toys do is they activate, they stimulate, they engorge, they teach you how to have more pleasure. They teach you how to take the moment of orgasm and expand it, take it, stretch it out. So you start to go into an orgasm, and instead of it being like, you're going, and it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And that's one orgasm, and you can have more of them, and they get more intense over time, and they stack. So all that is just learning how to do it. Everybody can do this.
When people are, we got a number of questions that were some version of like this position's uncomfortable for me. Yeah. And one of the things like you see with that is that almost stops people from like trying different things, right? You hear most people, and it's like they do the same kind of positions, they do the same things over and over again because they know that it works for them. Yeah. But that also stifles probably a lot of the skill acquisition, as we're talking about it, and the learning. What are your thoughts on that stuff there? Like, I know that this position gets me a great orgasm, but this position does not, or this position's uncomfortable, or it hurts a little bit. Like, what do you tell somebody who's explaining that to you? Like, whichever position missionary does, great, but if I'm on top, it's uncomfortable, or, vice versa, whatever that would be.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Hines, you are talking to the original pillow princess.
The pillow princess.
My bedroom has these cabinets, and above all the cabinets are these little nooks and crannies, and I got a million pillows up there. Plus, I also have a Liberator wedge, which is really nice. And I have a Zafu, a meditation cushion. I get a stack of towels. I've got my Liberators on the bed, so nothing gets on there. I've got all my different lubes that I love, and all my toys out that are my current heartthrobs, and I got everything going there. And so one of the great things about sex positions is that there are a lot of positions where if you just use bolsters, or you just bring yourself to the edge of the bed and one person can stand and the other person's lying down, there's a lot of really good positions that you can try. And that is if you want to improve your desire, if you want sex more than you do, which most people do, honestly, most people are like, I wish I was hornier. I wish I wanted sex more often. Unless you're like a 28 to 32 year old guy or like an 18 to 32 year old guy where you're like, I'm so horny, make it stop, which I get a lot of,
other than that,
stop, I'm so horny. And I'm like, that's health. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
But the pillows are very good. And then the other piece of that is, just find different things. I have a book that I wrote called 7 Stimulating Sex Positions. It's at 7positions.com, the number 7, with the word positions.com. Thanks for putting all this in the show notes. And what it has are my 7 favorite positions for stimulating multiple erogenous zones simultaneously. And many of them include integrating pleasure tools on top of all the sensation. And I think that's a very important thing to know, is that you're going to start out doing a position and feel like you don't really know what you're doing. That was me for cowgirl in my 50s. And I was like, I'd usually just been missionary guy on top. And I decided I wanted to learn how to really ride cowgirl and reverse cowgirl as well, because that's just sexy. And I started doing it, and I didn't really feel like I knew what I was doing, and I was, awkward about it. And then I started to, really just focus in on what felt good to me. And there is not a guy in the world, when a woman is taking her pleasure on him, that isn't completely happy with that. He wants that.
Right.
He wants you to enjoy yourself with his tool. And so I started practicing, and I started feeling like, I might be able to have an orgasm. I started to have a little orgasm, and then it got better, and then I learned more techniques. And a lot of the orgasmic intercourse stuff that I teach is what you can do with her vagina with your penis, and what she can do with her vagina with your penis that will really give her incredible orgasms. And then once you know that you're pretty good at that, different sex positions start to be, more doable, because you feel more confident. So you get more confident. You have to try things a few more times, because desire isn't a simple equation. It's trust and safety. I trust you. You're not going to hurt me. I'm not going to get an STI or conceive if I don't want to, or any of those things. Plus fun, adventure, variety, novelty. If you don't have the novelty, all the safety in the world is like, the monotony of monogamy.
Right.
So you got to try things, and no, you're going to not have the best experience the first time you do it. You're just learning. Everybody thinks they need to automatically know how
practice a skill.
Is. They have to be fantastic at it. No, that's not a growth mindset. It's like cooking. The first time you cook that recipe, you're like, okay, this was good. I would make this again, but the next time I make it, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to brown that thing. I'm going to saute those onions, or whatever. And then the second time you're like, good. And then the third time it's in rotation, and everybody in your family is like, this is my new favorite meal.
Yeah.
So that's what sex is like. We're not the only thing we're born knowing how to do is procreate, not make love.
Yeah.
Same thing with oral pleasuring. So many people say to me, oh, I don't like 69. I can't really concentrate. I don't know. I'm like, do it more, because it's the most incredible connection between the two of you. You start to get good at it. You start to connect your heart, connect your limbic system. You start to be able to toggle your pleasure from the giving to the receiving in a way that becomes an effortless flow state of ecstatic bliss. But you don't start out in an effortless flow state of ecstatic bliss. That takes some practice, which is why I'm having the best sex of my life at 63.
One of the biggest, I think, kind of questions and complaints that we hear from patients, even because this relates a lot to pelvic health, is pain.
Yeah.
You've talked a lot about kind of, like biohacking and regenerative therapy, and that. Let's unpack that. So if somebody comes to you and they're like, look, love sex, I'm having pain. It's painful whenever I have sex. Let's go through like the, how you would explain to them to start to, heal that, improve that pain, so that they can get to this healthy sex life.
Yeah. Most often it affects women first, but it also affects men. And it doesn't affect them as pain. It affects them as loss of erectile firmness, difficulty achieving or maintaining an erection, and loss of sensation, where they need to bang it out to get off. And then their woman is like, ugh, I don't even want to submit myself to that torture of him trying to achieve his orgasm. And so a part of the pain that women experience can often also be because their men have had sensation loss. So I really want to call that out, because when you're a couple and you've been with each other for a while and you're about the same age and you've been eating about the same food, you've got all the same vascular plaque and calcification and hardening of the arteries and loss of blood flow and edema and, all the things that are what lead to all this pain and sensation loss. And if your guy has sensation loss, you have sensation loss.
Yeah.
You just don't realize how much harder it is to achieve orgasm till you do some regenerative treatments and therapies and practices. And then you're like, oh my God, my orgasms are better than they've been maybe better than my 20s and 30s, because I've learned how to orgasm better, and it feels even better than it did when I was young. Like, I'm back better than ever. So there's essentially, when we think about sexual biohacking and regenerative therapies, biohacking came from the world of longevity. Longevity said we can do these hacks, these biohacks, to extend our health span. And I do the biohacks that extend your sex span, teach those components of biohacking. I am the world's leading sexual biohacker. That's mostly what I speak from stage about all over the world at this point. And that is great. If you're young, you can have better function. But if you're older and you've had some atrophy, which is what happens, we desiccate, we dry out, we shrink up. You look at your grandparents and they're much tinier, because they've desiccated, they've shrunk. And so our genitals are shrinking too. You think about your grandpa's penis is not giant like it was when he was 30 in those pants that are baggy, droopy drawers, right? And so that's where we're all headed, unless we fight against it. So we have this notion of regenerative therapies. Let's get us back to full function. And then we can take ourselves to the next level of function, which would be the biohacking pieces of it. Yeah. And don't worry, you don't have to put your genitals in cryotherapy chambers. Because that's really cold. Although they do go in there with you when you go in.
It's hard to leave them out. It's hard to leave them out.
You can't leave them out.
Probably more comfortable to bring them in, actually.
Keep them covered a little.
So let's go through the stages of this, because a lot of what I would see is like, okay, yeah, like I get optimization and stuff, but let me heal what I have. Let me feel better now. So let's navigate that. I've heard you talk about shockwave. We've talked about infrared, PEMF. like what are the best things that you've seen for women and men in terms of improving, let's stay on pain for a minute, improving pain and function there.
Yeah, good. So I love that about you, because that's what the first thing you want to do is you want to get people out of pain and move them into pleasure. And that's what we're going to do here. So the very first thing is start taking a nitric oxide supplement. Citrulline is better than arginine for older people from clinical data.
Yeah.
And I make a blood flow supplement called Flow. It's a food-derived nitric oxide booster, because we don't have the nitrogen in our soil that we used to. So even if we are really good about eating our beetroot and our leafy greens multiple times a day, we simply can't get the nitrates that turn into nitrites that turn into nitric oxide that pumps the blood to our genitals. So a supplement that for me that is always a ground zero, along with my multivitamins and my omegas, is a nitric oxide supplement. The second thing, so then that's going to start getting blood flow back to the pelvic bowl. Obviously working out, any kind of high intensity interval training, anything that gets you pink in the face is going to push your vascular system, so that you want to think about VEGF. What you want to think about is growth of the capillaries out to the edges all the time. So any supplements that are good for VEGF, and honestly, you can go to ChatGPT and they'll give you a list. I don't need to spend my time telling you how to do that. Then the second thing is usually what happens with women is that the introital sphincter, that opening, that round muscle at the entrance to the vagina, starts to get sensitive. And then it hurts the tissue in the vagina. It starts to thin. And that's from estrogen loss and collagen loss. So you want to do topical vaginal estrogen. My very favorite one, you can usually get a prescription, but I also love a vaginal serum called Glow Below. It's at getglowbelow.com, and she makes two versions, Dr. Michelle Sands. You should have her on your show. One is a biased with estrogen, so estradiol and estriol, and other really nice things that are very, they make the tissue supple. Very, very healthy ingredient panel. There's also a DHEA version for women who can't take estrogen for one reason or the other, or don't want to. And the DHEA, of course, is the master hormone, so that helps produce some. But what it really helps produce more is testosterone. And in actual fact, what's interesting about that is that's really good for improving sensation. So testosterone on the genital structures really helps improve sensation. You feel more pleasure, which is neat too. So there's your estrogen replacement, which then helps thicken the tissue, adding your collagen into your morning smoothie, making sure you're getting your copper and your zinc, and adding in hyaluronic acid. All of these things help plump up your skin as well as your vaginal mucosal lining. That really helps. Adding lubricants into lovemaking. I don't like the category of FDA, regulated sexual lubricants, because they all must have preservatives in them. So when you go into CVS or Walgreens or Target or Walmart or wherever you're going to get your lubes, they're going to be basically like the ultra processed foods of what used to be aloe vera and jojoba oil and, avocado oil and things like that. That's what lubes used to be. And now they're just crap chemical ingredients. So I stay away from that stuff, because if I wouldn't drink it, put it in my mouth, I wouldn't put it in my vaginal mucosal lining. It's the same part. It's going right into your bloodstream. So you're getting all that garbage chemical stuff. So what I like, the current brand that I like, is an intimacy oil from a company called Nude. And it's at loversbundle.com. And I can have any of these things I'm talking about, I can have sent to you too, Dr. Hines. So just keep your shopping list and I'll have everything sent to you. And what I like about it is that it's essentially simple oils, like jojoba oils with some essential oils in there and some CBD. And CBD is available in all the states except they can't ship to... They might be able to ship it, but I'm not sure, to Oregon and I think it's North Dakota, but 48 states. And what's nice about it is that the essential oils they use, the CBD, all of these things. The CBD, you have a lot of endocannabinoid receptors in your genital structures, in your organs, in your brain, all kinds of things. That's your pleasure healing pathway. So yoni massage with wonderful intimacy oil can really soothe the tissue, bring in the blood flow, plump it up nicely, and be non-chemically and give you that slide and glide that you're looking for. So I really like that. The next thing up from there is what I would call an at-home, do-it-yourself vaginal rejuvenation strategy. This is only vaginal rejuvenation. So what it's doing is, it's a little device. It's called the Vagina Device. It's at vaginadevice.com. And it's a red light, a little device that goes up inside the vagina that is red light photobiomodulation, infrared, that penetrates the vaginal mucosal lining, stimulates the mitochondrial, the mitochondria in the cells of your vagina, and it gives it this light that stimulates ATP production and stimulates cellular biogenesis. You make more vaginal tissue faster.
Have you ever used NAD at all, like in combination with that? Are you familiar with?
I haven't used intravaginal NAD, but I've done a lot of NAD IVs, and I like the Qualia NAD Plus. I cycle it 1 month on, 1 month off. I find that it works better for me to cycle it. So I love NAD.
We use a suppository for our patients who have like cellular energy issues, and it goes like it goes. You get as much into your bloodstream in a suppository as you do in an IV. In cool. The same exact thing. But as you're saying that, I'm like, man, like I've had a lot of males and females who started using them that were like, this is incredible. My pelvic health has gotten better. It gets delivered there first, but it is going into your bloodstream. But I'm like, you're saying that. I was like, I've never thought about having someone experiment with doing a vaginal suppository with an NAD if you've had lubrication issues, pain issues. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. That sounds like if you stack that with infrared, that would be a crazy powerful treatment. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
And I also think if you're going to do intravaginal red light, why not add some methylene blue? Mm-hmm. That works so well with red light and vitamin D. You need a little extra vitamin D when you're doing that as well. The other thing that I think is really interesting about red light, intravaginal red light, is that your vaginal microbiome, which is very, very important, and especially as you age, there is a higher propensity for more bad bacteria overgrowth in an aged vagina because the glycogen levels start to drop. But red light stimulates glycogen, which is what the good vaginal microbiome eats. So it improves glycogen levels, and when you're doing your topical estrogen, you're also lowering your chances for UTIs. So, the urethral tube and the vaginal canal or the vaginal cavern, it's not really a canal. It's not an inside-out penis. That's why I always say cavern. It's more like a cave than it is like a tube. And I want people to envision that, because when you make love, you're not just going in and out, in and out, in and out, a sword in a sheath. That's a very kind of like masculine thought about anatomy. If you think about what the vagina wants, it wants stimulation all around that whole cavern, not just the in and out piece, especially when the tissue is sensitive. That friction can hurt. So there's a lot of wildly orgasmic intercourse techniques in that orgasmic intercourse thing that are a lot less friction, a lot more slow, shallow thrusting with alternating deep thrusting, slowed way down, that often trigger a woman's orgasms for the first time in her life. So the red light is really good. The estrogen is really good. The citrulline-based nitric oxide is really good. But that doesn't get the clitoral atrophy. The clitoral atrophy can't be fixed with the red light in the vagina. Oh, and it does. The red light in the vagina device also helps with the urinary incontinence and pelvic, like loss of musculature, because it also gives some Kegel tone, and it also has warmth, which helps with recollagenating the vaginal mucosal lining. So there's a lot of benefits to doing the red light therapy at home. It feels fantastic. And it's really good for, like, if you know you're going to have a lovemaking date later and you're probably going to have intercourse, if you do that in the morning, it engorges the vaginal cavern. And so when you have intercourse, the intercourse feels better as well. So it's really good, like pre-foreplay, if you will.
Yeah.
Then from there, the clitoris is still atrophying. You're losing sensation. How do you fix that? That's where the Gainswave comes in. That's the shockwave therapy. And I only recommend Gainswave specifically because there's a lot of people out there with a lot of shockwave devices that have not been trained on genital rejuvenation. And if you go to a Gainswave doctor, you're not going to get hurt. If you don't, you run some risks. And so I really like Gainswave, and I am a company spokesperson for them because I went to them and I said that you have the best technique. I want to be part of this organization. Keep teaching me and training me. I want to let people know about what you do. And so I'm part of their team for 7 years. I've been part of their team, helping, just learning everything as they've grown and, you know, build out their doctor networks and everything. So that's the only thing I would say is that Shockwave also does penile rejuvenation and it does vaginal rejuvenation, including the clitoris, the labia. You know, there's this thing all over social media right now where menopausal women are like, my labia shrinks in menopause. And I'm like, it doesn't have to. If you're doing these kinds of things, and, you know, you can take, estrogen is not expensive by prescription. It really isn't. I mean, I think my estrogen costs me like $5.99 a month. I do have health insurance, but it costs me $5.99 a month. The Glow Below is $30 a month for the topical vaginal estrogen there, but it's a serum and it's really calming and it's even way beyond just the estrogen itself. I love that. So you could opt for that instead if you didn't, but I think systemic estrogen is also helpful. Like the patches are really good for, you know, getting more estrogen in your body. And then, the nitric oxide supplements, you buy a 6-month supply, it's probably like $18 a month, you know? So yeah, I mean, it adds up, but listen, if
what else is more important to spend money on?
If you could spend $100,000 today to know you were going to get 10 years longer on your life, would you do it? Yeah, you'd do it. So why wouldn't you spend $50 a month extending your sex span, which is going to give you all that oxytocin and all of those benefits, you know, and get you out of pain and keep you intimate with your partner, have that longer, healthier, happier life. So none of these things are that expensive. I think the vagina device is a couple $100 and it lasts I've had mine for years. So it helps you chase that incontinence that invariably comes as well. So the Gainswave, the external genital structures as well as the internal vaginal structures. If you want to go beyond just the vaginal and you want the full vulvovaginal rejuvenation, that's your Gainswave. Then you can go up from there and you can add PRP, which people have heard the O shot and the P shot. And when you go get your Gainswaves, often that doctor will do O shots and P shots. Take your husband with you. Both of you get your Gainswaves done so he keeps his erectile function as well. And think about using PRP to accelerate tissue repair and remodeling and regeneration. If you want, you can go beyond that. You can do a combination of things. There are people out there doing things like exosomes and collagen injections, things like that. RegenMax, I just talked to them recently. And I have also taken my own stem cells out of my adipose tissue and I have them banked at American Cell Technology because I had to recover from long haul COVID. I lost more than half my hair. I was almost bald from it. My skin was damaged. My heart and lungs were damaged. My kidney and bladder was damaged. I had soft tissue damage. I tore my ACLs and MCLs. I had a lot of damage from that. And, so I've been doing my own stem cell IVs and also intraosseous injections into my leg bones with my own stem cells, drilling stem cells into my bones under a sedation, which is helping me grow those ligaments back. So I don't have to have a surgery and slice down the fronts of my legs and put in cadaver ligaments. I'm back on the slopes. I just did 10 days in Steamboat, and it was incredible. And, I want to ski into my 80s. So I need to stay on my skis. And so stem cells are very, very good for regenerating all that tissue and keeping it really youthful and plumped up and building back more tissue that you lose as you age. So that's kind of the budget to luxury, scale of things that you can do when you go from regenerative to biohacking. When you're doing stem cells, you're moving beyond regenerative into better than you ever had.
I love it. I feel like we could go forever with some of this stuff.
I know.
I think you've hit
we've got more in us.
Absolutely. I think we've definitely hit some of your favorite tools. Is there anything that we did not cover from the tool bucket for men or women? I know we hit pumps. Penis pumps.
I want to talk about it for just a second.
Yep.
Because it is so important. And listen, Derek, I will send you a pump so you can try it out. So you've got the kinesthetic experience of pumping. It's going to be really valuable for your patients. Penis pumps cost less than $200. And I don't recommend, there's only one pump I recommend, and I have like 30 reasons why it's the one that I recommend. And it's called the Whopper. It's at pumpswork.com. And I've helped over 250,000 men learn to use a vacuum erection device, a penis pump, to reverse the atrophy of aging, and to go on to move from regenerative to biohacking, to go on to improve male enhancement, which is to actually thicken and lengthen the penis, not just back to the original largest size you were, but even go beyond. And the penis is a very malleable tissue mass that loves the vacuum pulling the blood in to increase the capillary growth. And when you do that, then you increase the nerves running in, because the nerves retract when the vascular system retracts as you begin to age and everything kind of shrinks and atrophies. So you want to pull it all back to the edges of the penis, and then that does cellular biogenesis. It duplicates and replicates your cells to create more penile volume, overall penile volume, length and girth. And so it's really good for correcting peyronie's. It's really good for reversing erectile dysfunction. It works perfectly in tandem with nitric oxide supplementation, testosterone replacement, vacuum erection pumping, and shockwave with Gainswave. Those 4 things are the gold standard for having a banging boner till the day you die. And you don't have to lose it if you do those kinds of things.
And I love that. One of the things we tell our patients to do, I had Dr. Elliot Justin on. Do you know him?
Yeah.
With FirmTech? Yes. I was like, this makes so much sense. Like, don't guess whether this is helping. Like, get the FirmTech, wear it. You're going to know how many nighttime erections you had during intercourse, how intense were the erections. Like, you can track all that. You can probably tell. This is how my brain works. I'm like, I want the metrics. Give me the numbers. Like, hey, you're 30% better and you're a month into this. Like, keep going, keep adding stuff. Like, you're on the right track. If you're guessing and you improve erections by 30% in a month, like, are you going to really know that? Maybe. But it's a really cool device as you're doing that to like give you that feedback of like, here's where you're at. I haven't heard.
Dr. Elliot likes it, but I call it the Aura ring for your ding-a-ling.
Yes, that's great. Do you know, is there something like that for women that kind of can, I don't know what you would measure exactly, but,
No.
Maybe that would be like lubrication. I don't know. They need to come up with that.
Yeah.
Dr. Elliot, get on it.
He's working on some things. Once you get your blood flowing, you're going to have so much more lubrication. Once you realize you don't need to be spontaneously horny for sex, that you and your partner can get you there, and that it takes you 15 or 20 minutes of what we would have called foreplay, but I call sex. Those are the things where women think there's something wrong with them because they don't have the same sexual response as men. We're the innies, they're the outies, or just we're not built like they are. We have the same parts, but they don't operate with the same time frame. And so once a couple realizes that she may never be like, baby, let's have a date. And he may have to always initiate, which is why I love to teach men how to initiate in a way that women can be a yes to, because they aren't expecting her to be responsive like him. They know together. My husband and I we had a hashtag before there were hashtags. We call each other Team Sweetie. And I always know that if I just get in there on that bed, we're going to come up with some fun things to do, and I'm going to get turned on, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to be like, yes, now I want intercourse. That's fantastic. And if I don't, he's fine with it. 9 times out of 10, we get there. And sometimes I just need him to tuck me in and kiss me goodnight and tuck my blankie over my shoulder, which is what he's been doing for me every night for 34 years this year. And so it's, you just gotta, it's teamwork.
Yeah. One of I think takeaways for this would be like a lot of what you said is so powerful, but you have to slow down and kind of have fun with it. Like it's not this rush to get to the intercourse. Slow down, take your time, experiment, think of it as a skill. And you can only improve a skill if you can slow down and practice that skill. That's one of the things I think that's almost just like a mental twist for people that would improve things. Well,
you're so smart, because guys ask me all the time, what's the number one sex technique?
Yeah.
It's like, guys, and I go, slow down. Turn around, come back and get us, because you guys are like full speed ahead with your prow,
Right. Susan, this has been, I'm so glad that the way you talk about this brings it to people. It's such an important part of life, such an important part of health. I think I might know the answer to this question, but we ask all of our guests. If somebody can do one thing today to improve their health, what would that be?
I would say, think about an erotic play date of something that you've always wanted to try, or maybe you tried once and then forgot about it again, and go back and create an erotic play date for yourself or with your partner.
I love that. That's really good. We're going to put all of the stuff that we've mentioned in the show notes. Susan, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Specifically, where can they follow you, ask you questions? I'm sure we're going to have all kind of fun follow-ups on this.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to answer questions. I do that every day for decades. If you get on my email newsletter at betterlover.com, just sign up there. You can reply to any email and I personally get it. That's the best way to get a hold of me. I also have a Substack, Longevity Wins newsletter, that you can follow me there if you're also interested in the longevity aspects of things that are not necessarily sexual, but just how am I rocking out at 64. And I think those are the two best ways to get a hold of me. So, and you can ask me anything. It doesn't have to be what the email newsletter's about that day. You can just be like, hey, I heard you on Dr. Hines' podcast and I wanted to ask about that thing. I'm good. I can answer that for you.
I love it. Susan, thank you so much for what you're putting out in the world. I really appreciate it.